Hello, good morning, and welcome to 3 Inning Fan, the podcast with me, Kelley Franco, from here, a very wet and rainy southwest corner of Connecticut. This is your one-stop shopping for your baseball news. We cover the Mets and the Yankees, and then we go around the league so we can keep you fluent on all things MLB in a quick and efficient manner with minimal chit-chat, but maximal references to song lyrics you really wish you had forgotten, and also good food. I hope you're following along on the socials at 3Inning Fan, one word on X and Instagram, and 3 words, 3Inning Fan, if you're a Facebooker or a YouTuber. Also, each download, listen, like, subscribe, or follow is the nicest thing you can do for me, and it just takes a click. Why 3-Inning Fan? Because you don't have to watch all 9 innings to call yourself a fan. You don't have to know every player's name. You don't have to know all the crazy stats. And you don't have to watch all 9 innings. It's summer. Watch 3 innings, then go do something with the ones you love. But of course, you can also isolate yourself, like me, and keep yourself away from friends and family and watch all 9 innings. It's fine. It doesn't matter. We're all fans. Let's start with the Yankees today. And who is hitting behind Aaron Judge? As you may have noticed, unless you passed out looking at your retirement portfolio this week, Aaron Judge has been walking. Oh, yeah, he's walking. He has been intentionally walked. He has been unintentionally walked. He has been passive-aggressively walked. He has walked the line, walked like a man, walked like an Egyptian, walked in Memphis. His boots were made for walking, and if he had a girlfriend named Renee, he would have just told her to walk away. Yankee fans want to see Aaron Judge swing. And the Yankees need him to swing if they want to ride in a car through the Canyon of Heroes. So we need the guy hitting after Judge to be scary enough that teams pitch to Judge, or enough guys on base before Judge that they have to pitch to him. For me, I'm focused on who bats after him. We've had Wells behind him, and Wells is solid. I really like Wells, but he's not scary. He's not hitting so hard that teams are forced to pitch to Judge. Some say swap Judge and Soto, but then I don't think we're solving the problem. I think we're just switching the problem. Plus, they've been a really nice tandem all year, and they're in a groove, so I kind of don't want to mess that up. You know who is scary behind Judge? A hot Stanton. That is the scary thing, and that's what we need. But he's not hot yet after returning from injury. And you know Stanton, it always takes him a little bit to get back in the groove, and he's just not there yet. Getting him going is the solution. If Stanton can't heat up, you know what I don't hate? I mean, we got to give Stanton some time, but you know what I don't hate is the idea of Jazz Chisholm batting behind Judge. He's fast. He's stolen 24 bases this year, and he seems to be the kind of guy who just makes things happen. He's not scary like Stanton is, but he makes things happen. He's a lefty like Wells, which is, of course, good after righty Judge. He has 17 homers this year to Wells' 8, so he's got a little pop, too. So my first choice is a hot Stanton. My second choice is a pesky Chisholm. Look, the trade deadline has passed, and so this is the team, and we got to dance with the boys who brung us. You're not getting anyone new. And I don't want to see Aaron Judge get the Bonds treatment. We all know what that is, and it's happening so much to Aaron Judge that I think we might just rename it the Judge treatment. If you have a different idea as to how to solve this Judge problem, weigh in on social media and let me know what you think. On X, YouTube, wherever you subscribe, some other options that you might want to look at could be to move Judge up in the order, move him back to the 4 spot, or maybe you want to see a particular guy in front of him or behind him. Whatever you think, just let me know what it is and let me know why. There's some other Yankee notes I wanted to cover before we get to the Mets. A little glimmer of light from DJ LeMahieu. How about that, guys? He had a 6 RBI game last week against the Phillies. He had a game-winning hit in the 10th on Sunday against the Blue Jays. Could old DJ be back? Well, I kind of don't think so, but maybe if we can get like 3/4 of old DJ, I would take it. Mark Leiter. I wanted to talk about Mark Leiter for a little bit because I've taken a little bit of a shine to him. Now, I never really thought much about him until he became a Yankee, but he has been good for them so far in high leverage situations. He's 33 years old. He's a veteran. He doesn't get rattled. And from what I have observed, he doesn't necessarily operate cleanly. I mean, he puts guys on and he kind of gets me into agita mode, I'll be honest. But so far, it seems like he gets himself out of the jams and he gets the team through the half inning or 2 half innings that he needs to get them through. He pitched nicely in Sunday's game against the Jays in the 9th inning, and it set it up for DJ's walk-off. Now, I read a really funny story, though, about when he pitched against the Phillies last week, and I don't know if you heard it. He was traded on trade deadline day, and he immediately hustled to the Yankees-Phillies game, and he actually got there in the 2nd inning. He went out to the bullpen, and then Boone put him in the 10th, so he hadn't even met Austin Wells. The first time they met was when he came into the game. So they met on the field, and Leiter kept the Phillies scoreless that day, and the Yankees won in 12 innings. So I'm kind of enjoying this little bit of new blood we have in the bullpen. Let's talk about the Mets. The Mets have slid back a bit, let's be honest, okay? They had a wild card slot for a little bit, and now they're 1.5 games out of the 3rd spot as of this morning. I wish they hadn't lost that series to the woeful Angels, and I really wish they hadn't lost that game last night to the Rockies. I can barely name 3 Rockies, and the Mets lost to them. But they're still in that wild card race in the NL. So let's keep the faith here. I want to talk about Brandon Sproat. Now, you know who he is because I talked about him a few weeks ago, and I know you were listening. But if you need a refresher, he is the Mets' 5th ranked prospect, a righty pitcher who was promoted to AAA Syracuse last week after he, get this, struck out 13 batters in an outing, including the last 11 batters he faced in a row. So that was for AA Binghamton, the Rumble Ponies, and after that he was promoted to Syracuse. So the big question is, will we see him in Queens this year? Oh boy, that would be so exciting. But personally, I doubt that he's going to work his way up into the starting rotation. But I could see him coming out of the bullpen toward the end of the year. He has a 101-mile-per-hour fastball, and if the Mets are in the wild card mix and make the playoffs, it might be tough to keep the kid down on the farm. Other pitching help that the Mets might look forward to at crunch time, including, crossing your fingers, Kodai Senga. We're hoping he might be back for the postseason if we make the postseason. But also Christian Scott, he of the sprained UCL in his throwing elbow. He's scheduled to begin throwing this week. How he does and how he feels will be instructive in the determination of whether he needs season-ending surgery. Speaking of Mets pitching, how about that Sean Manaea? He's pitched great as of late, including a terrific 7-inning hit. 6-hit, no earned run outing on Monday in the Mets' 6-0 win over the Cards. He's now 8-4 with a 3.30 ERA on the season. Now, Manaea has a $13.5 million player option at the end of this season. He can take it or he can opt out and test the free agent market. His agent is Scott Boras, so we all know that means he's likely to test the free agent market, okay? And if he keeps pitching the way he has been pitching, it's pretty clear that's what he'll do. But now that he's pitching better, there's kind of another option that I wanted to explore. The Mets could issue Manaea the qualifying offer at season's end. Last year, the QO was $20.325 million. Now, we don't know what it will be this year, but it'll probably be something close to that. If Manaea took it, it's a nice raise for next year. And if he didn't, the Mets would get a draft pick, and whoever signed Manaea would lose one. The rules are a little more complex than that on the qualifying offer. There's a sliding scale measurement as to the quality of the draft pick that's gained and lost. It's based on competitive balance tax and the size of the contract that the free agent winds up signing. We can explore that sometime in the offseason. Anyway, the Mets have sent a message that their real focus is 2025. And no, they don't come right out and say it, but we kind of all know that's the feeling we get. So they better start thinking about what their starting pitching options are for next year. Severino and Quintana are free agents after this year, and Manaea has that option. So they've got 5 starting rotation slots and 3 guys potentially gone. Brandon Sproat, maybe. That would be fun. And speaking of the qualifying offer and free agents, let's talk about Pete Alonso. Alonso, so far this season, has had his career worst slugging and OPS, although he thankfully isn't hitting the 217 he hit last year. He's on track for 33 home runs and 85 RBI. Not that these numbers are bad, but they're just not the Pete Alonso we've grown to know and love. And considering it's his walk year, we might have thought that he might do a little bit better. So the Mets will certainly issue the QO to Pete Alonso, okay? And it was initially thought, I mean, if you were going to speculate, you would have thought he would reject it and then go test the market because, again, Scott Boras is his agent. But given the season he's having, I'm kind of starting to wonder, might he consider accepting it? Because think about it for a second. It would be a 1-year deal akin to a pillow deal, and he'd have another shot at getting a good season before he went out and tested the market. And then he could test the free agent market next year without the baggage of shopping himself with the loss of a draft pick. Because remember, a player can only get 1 qualifying offer during the course of their career. So once you get it, that's the only one. So with his agent as Scott Boras, Pete is probably leaning toward testing the market. A lot will be determined by how Pete plays for the rest of the season and hopefully the postseason. He kills it, he tests the free agent market. He doesn't, maybe he takes the QO and postpones free agency for a year. All right, let's get ourselves out of the New York baseball bubble. Under the category of #winning, the White Sox beat Oakland last night and snapped a 21-game losing streak. They had lost 21 games in a row. 21 was an American League record. The Orioles lost 21 games to start the 1988 season. The modern MLB record is 23, that honor held by the 1961 Phillies. The White Sox are 15 games behind the Rockies, who have the next worst record. It reminds me of that line in Moneyball where Brad Pitt, playing Billy Beane, says, there are rich teams, there are poor teams, then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. They are so far behind that they could actually be mathematically eliminated soon, in August. They're 41 games back in the AL Central. And they haven't just lost. They've been killed. They were outscored by 85 runs during that losing streak. They're in danger of eclipsing the modern record for most losses in a season held by the 1962 Mets at 120. My Mets fans already knew that. By the way, Mets fans, I have a question for you. Would you like to see the Mets' 1962 record eclipsed? Or do you have kind of a bizarre fondness for it? And I've heard both sides, really. And I have to be honest, I kind of understand the bizarre fondness. But then again, I'm also the person who might break out singing Captain and Tennille in the middle of a baseball podcast. So there's talk of manager Pedro Grifol losing his job. Apparently, he met with the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, and GM Chris Getz, but they didn't fire him. I guess they met last week. And I think, honestly, if he were going to be fired, I'm not sure why that wasn't done months ago. And then on top of that, Garrett Crochet was not traded, perhaps in part due to his rules being leaked on when he would pitch and not pitch. And he was slated to bring in a haul. So that was just another punch in the gut for this team. My guess is that Grifol gets fired toward the end of the year or at the end of the season. If it's toward the end of the year, they'll bring in an interim guy, and then they'll find a permanent replacement in the offseason. I do think the club needs to upgrade the team, though. This whole thing cannot be on Grifol. Candidate to replace him. I was thinking about Marlins manager Skip Schumacher, who will be a free agent at the end of this year. But would he want the job? He's good. He was the NL Manager of the Year in 2023. He might want to go to a team that has more promise and a bigger contract, such as the ones signed recently by Craig Counsell or the extension signed by Alex Cora. He could certainly be that level of manager and get that kind of money. And I don't know that the White Sox are up for that. Who's the team that you secretly root for, even though you're not a fan of them? Do you have a team like that? I bet you do, and maybe it changes every season. But for me, this season, it's the Pirates. I'm 100% bandwagon, guilty as charged. I won't even bother arguing. But let me tell you, I really want to see phenom Paul Skeens pitch in the postseason. The Pirates are in the wild card race in the NL. And for the first time, they were buyers, albeit modestly, but buyers at the trade deadline and getting reliever Jalen Beeks, Marlins outfielder Brian De La Cruz, and Jays utility player Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, old friend of Yankee fans. The Bucks had a tough first half, but they climbed back to 500 by the All-Star break. But their August is challenging, starting with, get this schedule. Last night, they started facing the Padres. They lost. The Padres are red hot. But over the next 2 weeks or so, they're facing the Padres, the Dodgers, the Padres again, and the Mariners. So they've got their work cut out for them. They're long shots, but I'm quietly rooting for them. The Angels. I've got kind of a beef with the Angels here. Let me tell you, why didn't they trade anyone at the deadline last week? I just don't understand this. The team is not good, but even worse, there doesn't appear to be a plan to make them better. That's what really bothers me. Trout's out for the season. That's heartbreaking. He was once arguably the best player in the game, and we certainly hope to see him in 2025. Anthony Rendon has been hurt. He was supposed to return last night against the Yankees. They got rained out. But his contract and his attitude have been a nightmare. But Luis Rengifo, and I realize he just broke his wrist, but last week he didn't have a broken wrist. He could have been very valuable at this trade deadline. They could have gotten a haul for him. Why didn't they trade him? And Tyler Anderson, everyone needed starting pitching. Why didn't they trade him? What exactly is the plan out there? She said to no one in particular. In the category of, let's give them something to talk about. The Guardians. They have given us plenty to talk about, yet no one is talking about them. Why is this? They have one of the best records in baseball right now. And you know what? They got outfielder Lane Thomas from the Nationals at the trade deadline. He's got power and speed. He had 28 homers last year, only 8 so far this year. But overall, that added to their offense. Overall, their offense has been great this year. Their bullpen has been excellent with closer Emmanuel Clase as the star. but they desperately needed starting pitching. They added starter Alex Cobb at the trade deadline, and about a month before that, they added 33-year-old free agent Matthew Boyd. No, they're not household names, okay? But the Guardians aren't really rolling with household names, but they are rolling. Who knows? Maybe the Guardians like that no one talks about them. Because you know what the most damaging thing you can ever do with an opponent is? Underestimate them. Let's talk for a second about the Orioles, because you know what I just heard happen last night? Right-hander Grayson Rodriguez was scratched at the last minute from last night's start at Toronto because of pain in his upper back and shoulder. He is returning to Baltimore for testing. Now, this is a real issue because the Orioles already were lacking for starting pitching, and they needed all the starting pitching they had. So let's hope Rodriguez is okay, because this is a team that we want to see at their best. And, you know, look, you want to see all these teams at their best. You don't want to see anyone taken down because of injury. So that is your roundup for today. And let me close with what I always close with, which is what's good to eat while watching the ball game. So today we are talking about, we don't stand on ceremony here, and we're not too proud to like certain foods. And one food I love is potato salad. Now, I've been making it partially because the potato harvest in our garden in upstate New York was incredibly prolific this year. So we've got enough potatoes to last a long time. But let me tell you, there is nothing more delicious than a potato that was just plucked from the ground. So I am going to tell you the secret to making your potato salad delicious. So I made my potato salad and I shared some with a neighbor last week, and he texted me and he said it was a county fair winner. I just love that because it is kind of county fair food with the mayonnaise dressing and also the fact that I just kind of harvested it from my garden in upstate New York. Anyway, there are fancy potato salad recipes, and some of them are darn good, okay? But actually, my favorite, and what I think is the most delicious one, is a very simple one, but with a secret. So my ingredients are potatoes, white wine vinegar, scallions, mayonnaise, and a ton of salt and pepper. Yep, that's it. And this is how we do it. We cut the potatoes into 3/4-inch dice and steam them until tender over salted water. And here's the secret. Are you ready? Get your pen. You put your white wine vinegar, your scallions, and your tons of salt and pepper in your bowl now while your potatoes are cooking. And then you drain your potatoes, and then while they are still the proverbial hot potato, you toss them with the vinegar and the scallions and the salt and pepper while they are still piping hot, because when you toss them with your vinegar while they're piping hot like that, it absorbs all the flavor and it makes the end product incredibly tangy and delicious. And then you want to let them cool to room temperature, just sitting on the counter. And that's going to take like an hour. So just go do something else for a while. And then you add your mayo. You don't want to add your mayo while it's hot. Once it's room temp, add your mayo, then put it in the fridge and refrigerate it until dinner time. The longer it sits, the better. And I think it actually even gets better the next day and the day after. My proportions for a recipe that'll serve maybe 6 to 8 would be 3 pounds of potatoes, 1/3 to 1/2 cup of white wine vinegar, maybe 4 or 5 scallions, and like I said, a ton of salt and pepper, and a cup of Hellmann's mayonnaise. We always use Hellmann's. And remember, it's always good to share something you make with someone who may have had a tough day. Never underestimate the power of cooking for someone. So, thank you for tuning in to this episode of 3 Inning Fan, the podcast. I am, as you know, an attorney by day, and I am hopping off to court after this, so it'll be a blazer on top of this for me, and then I'll march off and do that. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you join me next week. Goodbye. Bye.